Marcus Drayton, was born into a family of industrialists. His family made its fortune in steel production during the early 20th century. From a young age, Marcus was groomed to take over the family business. He attended the finest schools and mingled with the children of other wealthy families. However, Marcus had ambitions that extended beyond merely preserving his family's wealth. He wanted to create an empire of his own. At the age of 25, fresh out of Wharton Business School, Marcus made his first real estate investment. He purchased a dilapidated apartment complex in Chicago, where others saw decay. Marcus saw opportunity. He renovated the building, increased the rents, and sold it for a substantial profit. This became his modus operandi. Over the next 3 decades, Marcus built Drayton Properties into one of the largest real estate development companies in the Midwest. Marcus's business acumen was matched only by his ruthlessness. He became known for his aggressive tactics, often acquiring small properties through a combination of lucrative offers and subtle threats. His employees feared and respected him in equal measure, knowing that he demanded nothing short of excellence. As Marcus's wealth grew, so did his appetite for the finer things in life. He collected rare whiskies, drove the latest luxury cars, and divided his time between a penthouse in downtown Chicago and a lakefront estate in Michigan. However, despite his success, Marcus found himself increasingly lonely as he approached his 60s. He looked in the mirror and saw a man who had achieved everything he had ever wanted in his professional life but whose personal life was empty. He longed for a deeper connection, for someone who could make him feel young again. It was in this state of mind that Marcus Drayton first laid eyes on Eva Larkin. The moment he saw her, young, beautiful, with a spark of ambition in her eyes, he knew he had to have her. What Marcus didn't realize was that in pursuing Eva, he was setting in motion a chain of events that would lead to his downfall and forever tarnish the Drayton name he had worked so hard to elevate. Eva Larkin's story began far from the glitz and glamour of Chicago. She was born in the small town of Whitewater, Wisconsin. Raised by a struggling single mother, Eva learned early on that life was rarely fair and that beauty could be both a blessing and a curse. Eva's mother worked as a cashier at the local grocery store, barely making enough to keep a roof over their heads. As Eva grew older, she watched her mother cycle through a series of boyfriends, each one seeming to take a little more of her spirit. Despite the challenges at home, Eva excelled in school. She was bright and charismatic, with a natural talent for performance that made her the star of every school play. Her teachers saw potential in her, encouraging Eva to dream big and aim for college. However, as high school graduation approached, the harsh reality of their financial situation became clear. There was no money for college, no savings to fall back on. Determined to escape the cycle of poverty she had grown up in, Eva made a bold decision. With nothing but a backpack full of clothes and the money she had saved from her part-time job at the local movie theater, she boarded a bus to Chicago, dreams of stardom filling her head. The windy city, however, proved to be far less welcoming than Eva had imagined. She quickly discovered that thousands of other young women shared her dreams, all competing for the same limited opportunities. Eva found work as a waitress, just like her mother. But the meager pay barely covered the rent for the tiny studio apartment she shared with 2 other aspiring actresses. As weeks turned into months with no big break in sight, Eva's optimism began to fade. She was on the verge of giving up and returning to Whitewater when a chance encounter changed everything. At the upscale restaurant where she worked, Eva served a table of young women who seemed to exude wealth and confidence. As she cleared their plates, she overheard them discussing their arrangements and the gifts they had received from their benefactors. Intrigued and desperate for a way out of her financial troubles, Eva struck up a conversation with one of the women after her shift. Eva, dressed in a borrowed gown and feeling out of her depth, scanned the room nervously until her eyes locked with those of a distinguished older man making his way toward her. Mr. Drayton. I presume? Eva's voice trembled slightly as she extended her hand. Marcus took it. His grip firm and confident. The pleasure is all mine, Miss Larkin. He guided her into the ballroom with a gentle hand on the small of her back. And Eva felt a shiver run through her body. Whether from excitement or apprehension, she couldn't tell. As the evening progressed, Eva found herself captivated by Marcus. He was charming, witty, and seemed genuinely interested in her aspirations. When she mentioned her struggles to break into acting, Marcus's eyes lit up. By the end of the night, Eva's head was spinning. Not just from the champagne, but from the possibilities Marcus represented. When he invited her to dinner the following evening, she accepted without hesitation. Their courtship, if it could be called that, moved at a whirlwind pace. Marcus wasted no time in showering Eva with gifts and experiences she had only dreamed of. A week after their first meeting, he presented her with a key to a luxury apartment in Lincoln Park. You need a proper place to live if you're going to pursue your career, he explained as Eva stared in disbelief at the spacious, sunlit rooms. Designer clothes filled her new closet. A gleaming sports car sat in her designated parking spot. And Marcus's black American Express card found its way into her wallet for emergencies. Eva felt as though she had stepped into a fairy tale, with Marcus as her fairy godfather, granting her every wish. However, fairy tales often have a dark side. And Eva would soon discover the price of Marcus's generosity. With each gift, each opportunity he provided, the invisible strings binding her to him grew stronger. Marcus began to dictate her schedule, insisting she be available whenever he called. He questioned her friendships, particularly with young men. His jealousy thinly veiled behind concerns for her reputation. Eva, intoxicated by her new lifestyle and grateful for Marcus's support, initially brushed off these red flags. It wasn't until much later that she would realize the true cost of allowing Marcus Drayton into her life. For the first few months, Eva Larkin felt as though she was living a dream. Marcus Drayton opened doors she never imagined possible, introducing her to influential people in the entertainment industry and bankrolling her acting classes at the prestigious Chicago Theatre and Film Institute. Their first major trip together was to Paris, where Marcus booked the royal suite at the Ritz. Eva, who had never been outside the United States, was overwhelmed by the luxury and history surrounding her. As they strolled along the Seine, Marcus surprised her with a Cartier love bracelet, deftly locking it around her wrist. "This is a symbol of our connection, my dear," he murmured, his eyes intense. "I hope you'll never take it off." From Paris, they jetted to the Maldives, where they spent lazy days in an overwater bungalow. Eva marveled at the crystal-clear waters and the schools of colorful fish swimming beneath their glass floor. In the evenings, as they dined on freshly caught seafood, Marcus regaled her with stories of his business triumphs. And Eva found herself drawn into his world of power and high-stakes negotiations. Back in Chicago, Eva's transformation continued. Gone was the small-town girl from Wisconsin. In her place stood a polished, sophisticated young woman who turned heads wherever she went. Yet, despite the glamour and the trappings of wealth, something nagged at Eva. She began to feel as though she was losing herself in Marcus's world. Her dreams of becoming an actress fading into the background. Marcus, too, began to change. The charming, attentive man she had met at the gala was replaced by someone more controlling, more possessive. He began to question her every move, who she was meeting, what she was doing when they were not together. Marcus's jealousy, once hidden behind a veneer of concern, became more overt. He would show up unannounced at her apartment, demanding to know where she had been and with whom. He made it clear that he expected her to prioritize their relationship above all else, including her fledgling career. "I've invested a lot in you, Eva," Marcus said one evening as they dined at an exclusive restaurant. His tone was light, But his words carried a weight that made Eva's stomach knot. "I expect a return on that investment." Eva's dreams of acting began to feel more and more distant, overshadowed by Marcus's demands and expectations. Their relationship took another turn when Marcus suggested that Eva undergo a minor cosmetic procedure. A nose job. To be precise. "It would really bring out your features," he said. His eyes appraising her as though she were a sculpture in need of refinement. Eva was taken aback. She had always been proud of her looks, never feeling the need to change anything. But Marcus's words planted a seed of doubt in her mind. Over the next few weeks, he gently nudged her, reminding her how much better she would look on camera after the surgery. Eventually, feeling the pressure and wanting to please him, Eva agreed. The surgery was a success. And Marcus was right. Eva's new look did make her stand out more in auditions. But the procedure marked the beginning of a subtle, insidious erosion of her self-confidence. Marcus began to suggest other improvements. A little Botox here, a touch of filler there. Each time, Eva complied, her sense of autonomy slipping away bit by bit. By the time they celebrated their first anniversary, the dynamic between Eva and Marcus had shifted dramatically. Where once she had felt empowered by his attention and generosity, Eva now felt trapped. Her life dictated by Marcus's whims. The apartment, the car, the clothes, all the things she had once seen as symbols of her newfound success, now felt like chains binding her to a man she was no longer sure she loved. But walking away seemed impossible. Marcus had become so deeply entwined in her life that Eva couldn't imagine a future without him. And so, she stayed, hoping that things would somehow return to the way they had been in the beginning. Even as a part of her knew that was a fantasy. As the months passed, Marcus Drayton's control over Eva Larkin tightened like a noose. What had started as subtle suggestions became overt demands. Marcus dictated where Eva went, who she saw, and how she spent her time. Her once vibrant social life dwindled to a handful of approved acquaintances. And her acting career, which had shown so much promise, stalled as Marcus's demands took precedence. "You don't need to work, Eva," Marcus would say, his tone dismissive. "I can provide for you." But Eva wasn't interested in being a kept woman. She had come to Chicago to chase her dreams, not to be someone's doll. Yet every time she tried to assert her independence, Marcus would remind her of all he had done for her. "Do you think you'd be where you are without me?" he would ask, his voice dripping with condescension. "I made you, Eva. You owe me." The words stung. And though she hated to admit it, a part of her believed him. Without Marcus, she feared she would be nothing. A nobody from nowhere. It was during this period of increasing tension that Eva met someone who would change everything. His name was Leo Donovan, a young, up-and-coming director who had recently moved to Chicago from Los Angeles. Leo was different from the men Eva had been around since meeting Marcus. He was passionate, idealistic, and completely uninterested in the world of wealth and power that Marcus inhabited. They met at an industry event, a rare one that Marcus had allowed Eva to attend. And the connection was instant. Leo saw something in Eva that she had almost forgotten about herself. Her talent, her drive, her potential to be more than just a pretty face on someone's arm. Over the next few weeks, Eva and Leo grew closer. They met in secret, sharing long conversations over coffee about films, art, and the future. Leo encouraged Eva to pursue her acting career with renewed vigor, offering to help her land roles in the independent films he was working on. For the first time in months, Eva felt a spark of hope. But as her feelings for Leo deepened, so did her fear of Marcus's reaction if he ever found out. Marcus, for all his controlling behavior, had always trusted that Eva would never betray him. The idea of infidelity never seemed to cross his mind. Perhaps because he believed he had complete control over her. But as Eva's relationship with Leo grew more intense, She knew she was playing with fire. The breaking point came one evening when Marcus showed up at Eva's apartment unannounced. He found her dressed to go out. Something she rarely did without him. "Where are you going?" Marcus demanded, his eyes narrowing. Eva hesitated for a moment before replying, "Just out to meet some friends." Marcus's expression darkened. "What friends? You know I don't like you going out without me." Panic surged through Eva as she realized how close she was to losing everything. Yet, in that moment, something snapped inside her. She was tired of living in fear. Tired of sacrificing her happiness for Marcus's ego. "I'm going. Marcus," she said, her voice shaking but resolute. "And you can't stop me." Marcus's face contorted with rage. But he didn't stop her as she walked out the door. Eva knew she had crossed a line. And there would be no going back. That night, she met Leo at a small, out-of-the-way bar where they wouldn't be recognized. They talked for hours. And for the first time, Eva allowed herself to imagine a life without Marcus. A life where she could be free to pursue her dreams. To be with someone who loved her for who she was. Not for what she represented. But as they left the bar, Eva's phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. "We need to talk. Now." Her heart sank as she realized the inevitable confrontation she had been dreading was finally upon her. When Eva returned to her apartment later that night, she found Marcus waiting for her. The air was thick with tension. And she could see the barely restrained fury in his eyes. "Who is he?" Marcus demanded. His voice cold. Eva tried to deny it. But Marcus's accusations cut through her lies like a knife. "You think I'm a fool, Eva?" he spat. "I've given you everything. And this is how you repay me? With some two-bit director?" The argument escalated quickly, with Marcus hurling accusations and threats while Eva tried desperately to defend herself. "I never asked for any of this, Marcus," she finally screamed, her voice cracking. "All I ever wanted was to be an actress. But you've taken that away from me." Marcus's expression twisted into something dark and unfamiliar. "You ungrateful little bitch," he snarled, advancing on her. "I made you. And I can just as easily destroy you." The threat hung in the air like a guillotine. And Eva knew in that moment that Marcus would stop at nothing to maintain control over her. Desperation drove Eva to do something she had never imagined herself capable of. The next day, she met with Leo and told him everything. About her relationship with Marcus. About the control. The manipulation. And the threats. Leo listened. His face growing pale as he realized the extent of the danger Eva was in. "You have to get out," he urged her. "Leave Chicago. Leave Marcus. And don't look back." But it wasn't that simple. Marcus had his hooks in every aspect of Eva's life. He controlled her finances, her connections, her career. Leaving him would mean starting over with nothing. But as the days passed, and Marcus's behavior grew more erratic, Eva realized she had no choice. The plan was simple. Eva would pack up her most essential belongings and disappear. Leo would help her find a place to stay out of Marcus's reach until they could figure out their next move. It wasn't a perfect plan. But it was all they had. However, in the world of high stakes and even higher egos, nothing ever goes as planned. As Eva packed her bags, her hands trembling with fear and anticipation, Marcus was already 2 steps ahead of her. He had always known this day might come. And he had prepared for it. By the time Eva and Leo arrived at their rendezvous point, Marcus's men were already waiting. The night Eva Larkin tried to escape, Marcus Drayton would go down in infamy. But not for the reasons she had hoped. What happened next would shatter the lives of everyone involved and expose the dark underbelly of Chicago's elite. A world where power, greed, and obsession could turn even the most innocent of dreams into a nightmare. In the aftermath, Marcus Drayton would find himself facing a reckoning more severe than any business deal gone wrong. And Eva Larkin would become a cautionary tale. A reminder that in the game of power and control, there are no winners, only survivors. The question that remained was whether Eva would be one of them.